Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have some surprising and quite interesting news from the dev blog and from an episode in the Waterline series. So yes, the title is correct. We are apparently getting tier 11 ships, essentially. They are expanding the Supership event with a couple more super ships this go round. This time they're adding in some super cruisers and some super destroyers, and they are of course bringing back the Satsuma and the Hanover. But apparently these ships are going to stick around for a little while longer and eventually get added into the tech line of their respective nations. How so? I'm glad you asked, because we have the dev blog article to go over right here. I'll link to this in the description down below, along with the link to the Waterline episode, and the relevant images or artwork, of course, will be thrown up on screen as I talk about the subject. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it. So, Waterline Superships. In the new episode of Waterline, we talk about the future of superships in our game. In Update 10.5, super battleships appeared in Warships. It represented our view of how military shipbuilding could have evolved if the decision had been made to continue building powerful artillery ships. As part of the temporary Grand Battle game event, players were able to try out two super battleships, the Japanese Satsuma and the German Hanover. The outcome of the Grand Battle showed that Tier 9 and 10 ships were able to capably stand up to super ships, and the newcomers themselves were warmly welcomed by our players. We often get questions about when superships will appear in the game again. We're happy to announce that in Update 10.10, they will be available to use in ranked battles. The upcoming season of ranked battles will take place in a 7v7 format on Tier 10 ships and superships. The season will take place without submarines, and for the matchmaker, there will be standard class restrictions. Superships will be mirrored by the matchmaker. New superships. In Update 10.10, in addition to the Satsuma and the Hanover, there will be 4 more superships with their own unique features. Japanese Super Destroyer Yamagiri. The Super Destroyer will have a unique mechanic to switch between 2 torpedo types in battle, which differ by various parameters such as range, speed, and damage. The following superships will introduce a new autoloader mechanic, which means after pressing a key, the player can switch to a specific firing mode, with which separate turrets can fire several consecutive salvos in rapid succession before being subjected to a long reload. The French supercruiser the Conde, the American supercruiser the Annapolis, and the Soviet super destroyer Zorky. Hanover and Satsuma will have updated adjustment firing mechanics. Now, if you filled the adjustment fire bar, you will need to press a special key to activate the characteristic bonus. This will allow players to control the use of the bonus and get it at the right time. I do like that change right there. Over the last few years, gameplay developed for Warships was focused on our horizontal progression, adding new mechanics, branches, or ships with unique peculiarities such as hybrids, but this framework was conceived many years ago, can only accommodate so many new concepts. Along with Supership, we aim to add new special mechanics to the game to give a new gameplay experience beyond the usual progression. These new mechanics are aimed at diversifying decision-making during combat and game tactics. We decided that superships and their mechanics, given the interest in them, may well become a full-fledged part of the game. We want to introduce something for all existing branches of ships by making a continuation for them in the form of superships. Given the very essence of superships as a development of already familiar ships, we think it would be most appropriate to place them in the tech tree as a continuation of their respective branches. In addition to the logic of this continuation, we also believe that because of the superiority of superships in terms of technical characteristics over their predecessors, superships do not fit into Tier 10. The expansion of the tech tree will greatly increase the variability of battles and introduce completely new mechanics. In addition, some of these mechanics may be added to the lower tier ships in the future. Right now, Tier 10 is the most popular tier among players, and its popularity will only grow. Therefore, we want it to continue to give players variety in gameplay with various new mechanics. We want to make obtaining superships simple and clear, accessible to all who wish to use them, and not harming those who reset branches in the Research Bureau. Therefore, you will need only 1 XP point to research a supership after researching a Tier 10 ship. The credit cost of buying the supership itself will be about 1.5 to 2.5 times the cost of buying a Tier 10 ship. Therefore, players will not need to play much on a tier 10 ship to be able to explore super ships, but will need to invest credits. The expansion of the tech tree is a big and important step for our game, and based on our previous experience, we do not plan to immediately add super ships for all nations and in random battles. Instead, we will start with ranked battles, and we will decide on further steps and implementation of superships as we go along. We will keep a close eye on the results of ranked battles involving superships, as well as your feedback. We will share details about ranked battle results and possible changes to the very concept of the new ships if they will be necessary. Supership economics. One of the most important aspects of adding superships to the game is their combat economics, the income per battle and maintenance cost. Over the years of development of the game, the economics have significantly accelerated due to various bonuses and economic signals, and credit earning has become even easier on the most expensive tier to maintain, Tier 10. And this has had a significant effect on their popularity. In the case of superships, we decided to change this approach, both to ensure that superships don't become too popular in matchmaking, and to ensure that Tier 10 ships will have an economic advantage over them. Therefore, superships will have a high maintenance cost, about twice as high as that of Tier 10. However, combat economics depends on many factors and require a lot of data. So at the moment, we have not made a final decision on it. In this regard, in the upcoming rank season, superships will neither earn nor consume credits. We will share the final details on the combat economics as soon as they become available. Please all information dev blogs preliminary, subject to change during testing, and showcase features may or may not end up on the main server. The final information will be published on the game's website. Okay, so superships. It does sound like they are looking to add in a new tier. They may not come out right and call it tier 11, but the super tier is, I guess, what we'll stick with it right now. Now, my opinion on, first off, the addition of these super ships into the game. If you guys remember back when the Grand Battles first came out, I said I didn't think they'd be added in, certainly not as premium ships, and that with the battleships at least, after playing them, I said, sure, you can add them in, but I don't think they would do much better than the current tier 10s in terms of their performance. Like, sure, you've got bigger guns, better armor and such, but you still got CVs, HE, plenty of HE. Their ships are massive. They eat torpedoes like nobody's business. They would be pretty easy to focus down and take care of in a random battles mode, and I think that will still happen here with them if they do wind up getting into the game with the battleships at least. Now, these new cruisers and destroyers, I don't know. I haven't played them yet. I have no feeling for how they will perform in combat, but this autoloader feature, they added something just like this into World of Tanks, and it's pretty toxic there. We'll see how it works in World of Warships. The concept of here's this ability or this mechanic where you activate it, you get a very high rate of fire for a little bit, and then you're penalized by having a low rate of fire after that. It's an interesting concept, and it could work if balanced properly, but it's how long is it going to last for? How many charges do you get? Kind of like the Austin. The Austin, when it pops its reload booster, for those 15 seconds that it's active, it's an absolute death machine. But after that booster is out, you have an 8-second reload time. So it could work, but we don't know their armor yet. We don't know even the caliber of their guns, to my knowledge. They haven't released these ship stats just yet. So there's that. Now, the Yamagiri, I do like the idea of it being able to switch between two torpedo types in battle. I like that. I like that idea. That's a nice little monkey wrench to throw into the current meta at higher tier. You know, being able to just switch up in between two types of torpedoes. I don't know how they're going to balance it. Maybe I think it does have like 3 sets of tubes in the clips that they show in the video. Or maybe 3. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell you. They don't really put it on screen for too long. But between the Zorky, the Annapolis, and the Conde, however you say it, we don't know much about them besides that they will have this autoloader mechanic. Okay, now the whole idea of adding in tier 11. So it's going to depend on how this develops. Right now it sounds like, and I don't know when they say it's only going to cost 1 XP to get these ships. I don't know if that's just for this upcoming season of Ranked, or if that's going to be how they are once they fully add them into the game. I would imagine you would have to grind for them just like any other ship in the game. But if you want to charge people 1 XP and then a bunch of credits afterwards, maybe. And it does sound like they are focusing on the credit economy a lot in this dev blog. Because, I mean, shoot, a ship with twice the post-battle maintenance, 2.5 times the post-battle maintenance of a tier 10 ship, whew, that's a mighty high price. I don't know if you'll be able to, let's say, buy a camo like you can with the tier 10 ships, and it'll cut that cost in half. But even then, now you're just at the normal cost of a tier 10 post-battle. Then you can throw in, of course, the signal flags, and then premium time if you have that on top of that. I mean, shoot, at that point, maybe you'll be making money if you have a pretty decent game. I mean, right now, they were absolutely correct about that. The way that the game has progressed right now at tier 10, you can barely do anything and still make money if you have premium time and the premium camo equipped on the ship, let alone stacking your ship with economic flags as well. Although, ironically, they've made this whole problem themselves because they added in these economics flags and then gave us the ability to mount 21 flags in our ship. So that's a problem they made. Pretty funny with that. So, I mean, it sounds like they're going to be super expensive to run, and you'll be able to go out for them in a couple of matches, but you're probably going to lose a bunch of credits unless you have like an absolutely fantastic game, and you won't really be able to run them a lot unless you just have, again, mountains of credits saved up, which a good chunk of the community most certainly does have, some of the older veteran players, of course. So, overall, my thoughts on this. I'm not 100% on board with the idea of going to tier 11 like this, with these ships that, I mean, they're breaking the design of the game. I mean, it's just like the other games of this nature, like War of Tanks, War of Warplanes, War Thunder. Although I guess War Thunder, you can kind of throw that one out the window because they don't really, they went through their 10.0 quite some time ago. The game's designed, of course, for you to grind from tier 1 to tier 10. For a very long time, Yamato's 18.1 inch guns, that was kind of the design around which most of the armor in the game was designed around, and a lot of the, you know, the gun caliber and a lot of the, maybe not official written down on paper rules of the game, but a lot of the new ships that were introduced, you know, no guns bigger than 480 for quite some time. And then we got the 20-inch guns of the Shikishima, and now we've got, you know, freaking Satsuma over here with 4 20-inch guns, and then Hanover with her 8 19-inch guns, so forth and so on. And then, of course, the 457 Onslaught that we're getting at higher tier now. And they're kind of just not really throwing it out the window, but I guess deviating from that, which they do say here that, you know, they're going in a different direction. They're focused on horizontal progression. I guess now they decided it's time to go back to linear progression and start adding in new things. And this is something I've kind of talked about before too. I mean, people always bring up paper ships. You know, why are they adding so many paper ships into the game? Yeah. The simple fact of the matter is there's not a lot they can do with ships. You know, building a navy and developing new ships is a much taller order than, like, tanks, let's say. Many nations can afford to develop their own tanks throughout the 20th century before everyone just started buying tanks from the Germans, the Americans, and the Russians, and so forth and so on. But designing and building ships is a much steeper endeavor in terms of cost, planning, and effort that's needed. You know, sure, there's plenty of Fletcher-class destroyers that they could add into the game, but we've already have Fletchers. You know, the Iowas, the Yamato, the Bismarck, the, you know, so forth and so on. Only so many of these, so many nations could afford to make large navies with different ships with different calibers before, of course, later on it all got kind of uniformed as we moved into the 21st century, where there's a lot of similarities and stuff. But as far as the 20th century goes, looking back at ships that were developed back then, there's only so much there, and that's a lot less than there are tanks and aircraft and such. So, like I said, it's going to get to the point where they're just going to have to start really making up a lot of ships to continue to add new content into the game. Now, are we at that point? if you would ask me last year, and like I said last year, I would say no. I'd say now this year we're getting mighty close to it, but there's still other nations they can do. Like I've said before, they still have a whole Pan American line they could do. And it seems like they're going down into the individual European nations now and doing maybe an individual cruiser or destroyer line for those now, which I think is pretty cool, rather than just doing one big pan-European line. But I guess this is where the game is eventually going to have to go to continue to get new content. You're going to have to start introducing more and more super ships, and then you're just going to have to start going bigger and better too at some point. I don't think we're at the point to where, you know, we're going to start to see a bunch of ships like Hanover and Satsuma and the Annapolis and the Zorky and all start to get added in at a very high rate, but it just seems they're kind of laying the foundation for this to take place. So, in terms of my feeling of this overall, part of me is excited to see new ships and see what they can do now that they're going beyond tier 10. What type of mechanics can they bring in? What type of ships are they going to introduce? So forth and so on. Part of me too is not that excited about it because it's like, oh boy, this is going to really throw the game for a loop. Now you're kind of uprooting tier 10 and turning it on its head, because tier 10 is of course top tier. You know, you're used to being the big dog at top tier, but now got freaking Satsuma and Zorky and Annapolis and Konda breathing down your neck now. So is that going to be that fantastic for the game? And are they just going to stop at super cruisers, battleships, and destroyers? We're going to get super CVs. We're going to get super submarines, you know, I-400, Red October maybe. Who knows now that we've gone beyond the barrier of tier 10. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on this whole development. Let me know what you guys think about this news in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subs, just past 29,000 the other day. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.